And I'd like to introduce a special guest now, Sir Philip Augar. Would you like to come and join me up here? Because I've got a few questions to ask Philip. Philip is a member of our 5 o'clock congregation usually, but he's come along to join us this morning. Thank you very much, Philip. Philip is a writer and broadcaster. He's advised prime ministers and CEOs. Philip, you left a high-profile role in banking to write critically about the industry that had been so much part of your life. Why was it that you did that?
That's, on a bad day, that's a question I often ask myself as I'm looking at a blank piece of paper. The truth of it really, though, is that I didn't really ever intend to go into banking as a career. I wanted to be a historian. But I couldn't get a job, and banking in the 80s seemed like a good way forward. And to start with, it was a very happy place to work. Finance seemed to me to be an industry that put the interests of its customers above the interests of the companies. It seemed to be a good place to sort of carve out a career. But as the 80s turned into the 90s, I felt that banking changed. I felt that the industry started to put the interests of the banks above the interests of the customers. And I felt that the time had come to make a change. I felt that I could write about this. It was a story that I felt needed exposing, and I started writing about the way the industry had changed. I want to make just two important reservations on that, John. The first is that by this I don't mean that everyone who worked in banking and finance was a bad person, far from it, but the culture of the industry changed. And secondly, a personal reservation. I don't want this to sound like some kind of heroic story. I didn't do this until we'd got a measure of financial security, and I should say I didn't do this until I'd actually got a book contract. But it was something that I really wanted to do.
Sure. Well, thank you for sharing a bit about your experience there. And this is obviously rewinding a bit. What was your sort of faith in those days? Were you a Christian?
I certainly believed that I was a Christian. My parents identified themselves as Anglicans. We brought up our own family on what we believed to be Christian principles. But actually it was only after I'd left banking that I really became a practicing Christian initially through a Life Explored course at All Saints in Little Shelford, and then through another Life Explored course here, and so on. So it became a practicing Christian in the second part of my career.
So you've had a few years now to reflect on what success is and how being a Christian shapes that. But how does being a Christian affect the way that you now view success?
So becoming a practicing Christian has completely changed the view the way that I view success. It's completely turned it on its head, really. The time that I worked in banking, I tried to live what I believed to be a Christian life and to work that way in the business. And I always tried to get a balance between work and family and how one treated colleagues and the world around us. But it's fair to say that I think at that time I viewed success, at least partly, in terms of progression at work, a bit money, a bit status, how well I was doing. Those things are all nice. But since I became a Christian, I view success as something completely different. It's how one leads one's life. It's one's faith in the Lord, and there's this knowledge that actually, however hard one tries, one can't succeed. One will always come short. But sort of turning success on its head like that has actually helped me enormously. It's taken a lot of the pressure off in professional life, because although it's nice to do well at work, it's actually much more important to live a Christian life, even in the knowledge that one can't succeed, one will always fall short, but comforted by the knowledge that someone else died to kind of take the blame for us in a sense. It's immensely reassuring. It's actually completely transformed the way that I view the life that I lead. I'm very grateful for it.
Well, Philip, thank you. You've whet our appetites with a fascinating life story and mentioning Jesus there and his death that makes all the difference. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.